What happens when a laid-back Hollywood star known for his humor and charm walks straight into a storm of sharp questions, live on daytime television, without a script, without a safety net, and nowhere to hide? Before we dive in, make sure you hit subscribe to Stage View, like this video, and drop a comment, because this is one of those moments you won't believe actually happened until you hear how it unfolds. The studio lights rise slowly, bathing the set in that familiar glow. The audience is buzzing, some excited, some curious, and a few already sensing tension in the air. The chairs are set, the mugs are steaming, and the cameras glide silently into position. Everything looks routine, controlled, predictable. But beneath that polished surface, something is different today. He walks out with a smile, relaxed shoulders, confident stride, the kind of presence that usually disarms a room within seconds. Chris Pratt waves, giving that signature half-grin, as applause ripples across the studio. He looks comfortable, maybe even a little amused, like he expects this to be just another stop on a promotional tour. But across the table, Sunny Hostin isn't smiling the same way. Her expression is composed, professional, but her eyes are focused, sharp, almost surgical. She's not here for jokes. Not today. Chris takes his seat. There's a quick exchange of pleasantries, a light laugh from the panel. Someone makes a comment about his latest project, and he responds with an easy joke, drawing laughter from the audience. For a brief moment, everything feels normal. Then there's a pause. It's subtle, almost unnoticeable, but it lingers just a second too long. Sunny leans forward slightly, her fingers resting on the table. Her tone shifts, not aggressive, not hostile, but undeniably serious. "So, Chris," she begins, her voice calm but deliberate, "you've built this image over the years, funny, relatable, approachable. But there's also been a lot of conversation lately about who you are off-screen." The audience quiets. Chris nods slowly. The smile is still there, but it's thinner now. Measured. "I mean," he replies lightly, "I hope I'm still funny off-screen too." A few chuckles ripple through the crowd, but they fade quickly. Sunny doesn't laugh. She holds his gaze. "I'm sure you are," she says. "But that's not really what people are asking." And just like that, the air changes. There's a tension now, thick enough to feel. Even the co-hosts shift slightly in their seats, glancing between them. This isn't the usual rhythm of the show. Chris leans back a little, crossing his hands, as if buying himself a moment. His eyes flicker, just briefly, but it's enough to show he understands exactly where this is going. Sunny continues. "There have been criticisms," she says carefully, "about your public associations, your beliefs, and the messages people think you're sending, intentionally or not. And I think a lot of viewers are wondering, do you feel misunderstood?" A murmur runs through the audience. Chris exhales softly. Not dramatic, not defensive, just real. "I think," he starts, choosing his words slowly, "that when you're in the public eye, people are going to create a version of you that fits whatever narrative they're trying to understand." Sunny nods, but doesn't interrupt. She's listening, but also waiting. "And sometimes," Chris continues, "that version doesn't match who you actually are." It's a safe answer. Thoughtful. Controlled. But Sunny isn't done. "Do you think," she presses, her tone tightening just slightly, "that silence can contribute to that misunderstanding? That by not addressing certain things directly, people fill in the blanks themselves?" That lands. Chris shifts in his seat. His fingers tap lightly against the mug in front of him. For the first time, the confidence flickers, not gone, but challenged. "That's fair," he admits. "Yeah, I think silence can be interpreted in a lot of ways." "Then why stay silent?" Sunny asks. The question hangs in the air. You can almost hear the audience leaning forward. Chris looks out briefly, past the cameras, into the crowd, then back at Sunny. His jaw tightens just a little. "Because," he says, "sometimes engaging with every narrative doesn't actually clarify anything. Sometimes it just adds more noise." A few scattered claps come from the audience, but they're hesitant, uncertain. Sunny tilts her head. "Or," she counters gently, "it could be seen as avoiding accountability." And there it is. The moment shifts from conversation to confrontation. Chris's expression changes, not dramatically, but enough. The smile is gone now. In its place is something more grounded, more serious. "I don't think it's about avoiding accountability," he says, his voice steady but firmer now. "I think it's about choosing what you engage with, and how." Sunny doesn't back down. "But when people feel hurt," she says, "when they feel excluded or concerned by what they perceive, don't they deserve a clear answer?" The audience is completely silent now. Even the co-hosts aren't moving. Chris takes a breath, a deeper one this time. And for a split second, you can see it, the weight of the moment. The realization that this isn't just another interview. This is something else entirely. Something raw, unscripted. He leans forward slightly, meeting Sunny's gaze head-on. I think people deserve honesty, he says. And I try to live my life in a way that reflects who I am, not who people assume I am. Sunny watches him closely. And who is that? She asks. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. But it's the sharpest question yet. Chris pauses. The cameras seem closer now. The lights feel hotter. The room tighter. He opens his mouth to respond. And stops. Just for a moment. A heartbeat. But in live television, a heartbeat can feel like an eternity. The audience shifts again. You can hear someone whisper. A chair creaks. The tension builds, not explosive, but suffocating. Then finally, I'm someone, Chris says slowly, who believes in treating people with respect, who believes in kindness, who believes that not everything you hear about someone is the full story. It's measured, careful, but there's something underneath it now. A subtle edge. Sunny leans back slightly, studying him. Do you think people are wrong about you? She asks. Chris doesn't hesitate this time. I think people don't know me, he replies. That lands differently. There's a quiet intensity to it, something that wasn't there at the beginning of the segment. Sunny nods once. But they're trying to, she says. That's why these conversations matter. A beat. And then, are you willing to have that conversation today? The question echoes. Chris looks at her. Really looks at her this time. And whatever ease he walked in with, it's gone. In its place is something more focused, more deliberate. The kind of presence that suggests he's no longer just answering questions. He's choosing his ground. The audience doesn't clap. They don't react. They just wait. Because everyone in that room can feel it now. This is no longer just an interview. It's about to become something much bigger. And it's only just beginning. The silence doesn't break all at once. It fractures. You can feel it in the room, like something invisible has shifted just enough that everyone knows there's no going back to the light, easy tone from earlier. The cameras are still rolling, the audience is still watching, but now every movement feels heavier, every word carries more weight. Chris Pratt leans forward, his elbows resting lightly on the table, fingers interlocked as if grounding himself. Across from him, Sunny Hostin doesn't look away. She's not pressing yet, but she's ready to. Yeah, Chris finally says, his voice steady, quieter than before but more intentional. I'm willing to have the conversation. A faint ripple moves through the audience, some nodding, others shifting in their seats. It's not applause. It's anticipation. Sunny gives a small nod, acknowledging his answer. All right, she says. Then let's talk about it. There's no hostility in her tone. But there's no softness either. You've been part of conversations where people have questioned your affiliations, whether it's organizations, communities, or even the way you express your beliefs publicly. Some people feel those associations send a message that doesn't include everyone. Chris listens, really listens this time. His eyes don't dart, don't scan the room. They stay locked on Sunny. And I think, she continues, what people want to understand is, do you see why that perception exists? The question lands differently than before. It's not just a challenge. It's an invitation, but a difficult one. Chris exhales slowly, nodding once as if acknowledging the complexity of it. I do, he says. I can understand how people might see things a certain way, especially when they're only getting pieces of who you are. Sunny leans in slightly. But those pieces come from what you choose to show, she replies. There's a soft murmur from the audience again, this time more audible. Chris doesn't immediately respond. He glances down for just a second, then back up. That's true, he admits. But I think there's also a difference between what you show and what people project onto it. The words hang there. One of the co-hosts shifts slightly, glancing between them, but doesn't interrupt. This moment belongs to them now. Sunny folds her hands on the table. Let me ask you this directly, she says. Do you feel that your silence on certain issues has allowed people to feel unseen or unsupported? There's no cushioning this time. No easing into it. Chris's jaw tightens just slightly again, but he doesn't pull back. I don't want anyone to feel unseen, he says. That's never been my intention. But intention and impact aren't always the same, Sunny replies immediately. A few audience members nod. Someone quietly says, that's true. Chris hears it. You can tell he does. I agree with that, he says. I do. And I think that's something I've had to really sit with. There's a subtle shift in his tone now, less guarded, more reflective. But I also think, he continues, that we're living in a time where people expect you to make statements about everything. And if you don't, if you take a step back or choose not to engage publicly, it gets interpreted as something else entirely. Sunny watches him closely. So what are you choosing? She asks. Because not choosing is still a choice. That one lands harder than the others. The audience reacts, quietly but noticeably. Chris lets out a small breath, almost a half laugh, but there's no humor in it. That's fair, he says again. You're not wrong. There's a pause. And then, for the first time, Chris shifts the energy, not by deflecting, but by leaning into it. But can I ask you something? He says. It's subtle, respectful, but it changes the dynamic. Sunny raises an eyebrow slightly, intrigued. Of course, she says. Chris tilts his head just a bit, considering his words carefully. Do you think it's possible, he begins, that sometimes people expect public figures to represent every perspective, every community, every issue, all at once? Sunny doesn't answer immediately. She studies him. I think people expect honesty, she says. And what if honesty, Chris counters gently, isn't always as loud or as public as people want it to be? There's a shift again, this time more complex. The tension isn't just between them now. It's layered, nuanced. Sunny leans back slightly, crossing one leg over the other. But when you have a platform as big as yours, she says, silence doesn't stay neutral. It gets interpreted. Chris nods. I understand that, he says. But I also think there's a danger in assuming that someone's values are defined by what they post, or don't post, on social media. A few audience members clap lightly this time, more confident than before. Sunny doesn't react to the applause. Her focus stays on him. Then how should people understand you? She asks. There it is again, that directness. Chris pauses. And this time, when he speaks, his voice is different. Less cautious. More personal. By how I treat people in real life, he says. By the way I show up for the people around me. By the choices I make when there's no camera on. The words land with a quiet weight. Sunny's expression softens, just a fraction. But the camera is on now, she says. And millions of people are watching. The reminder is sharp, but not unfair. Chris nods slowly. I know, he says. A beat. And maybe I haven't always handled that perfectly. That admission changes something. The audience feels it. You can hear it in the subtle shift, the way people lean forward, the way the silence becomes more attentive than tense. Sunny picks up on it too. What would you do differently? She asks. Chris doesn't answer right away. He looks out again, this time not past the cameras, but into them. As if, for the first time, he's speaking not just to Sunny, but to everyone watching. I think, he says slowly, I'd be more willing to step into uncomfortable conversations sooner, instead of waiting for them to build into something bigger than they need to be. Sunny nods. Like this one, she asks. A faint smile touches Chris's face, small but real. Yeah, he says. Like this one. There's a soft ripple of laughter, relieved but still cautious. For a moment, it feels like the tension might ease. But then Sunny leans forward again. And you can tell she's not finished. Then let's make it even clearer, she says. The room stills again. Do you believe that public figures have a responsibility to speak out, especially when their silence might be interpreted as indifference? Chris's expression settles back into focus. This isn't easing up. This is deepening. And now, there's no space left for general answers. Only clarity. He inhales slowly, preparing, not just to respond, but to define something. And as the cameras tighten, the audience holds its breath once more. Because whatever he says next, it won't just answer the question. It will shape everything that comes after. Chris Pratt leans back for a heartbeat, letting the weight of the question settle, the room holding its collective breath. The lights hum softly above, cameras rolling like silent witnesses to a moment that feels larger than daytime television. For a split second, he closes his eyes, not in defeat, but in gathering himself. Every muscle in his body seems poised, ready for the truth he's about to speak. I think, he begins, voice deliberate, careful, yet carrying an unmistakable gravity, that yes, we do have responsibility. But responsibility doesn't always look like a statement or a post. Sometimes it's how you behave when no one is watching. Sometimes it's how you make the people around you feel safe, respected, and included. The audience murmurs softly, as if collectively acknowledging that something real is being said. Sunny Hostin doesn't interrupt. She simply leans forward, fingers still clasped, eyes never leaving his. This isn't an argument. It's an interrogation of integrity, a live examination of character, and everyone watching knows it. And I get that, Chris continues. Sometimes people see silence as avoidance. And I've felt that sting myself, from fans, from critics, from people I respect. It's not easy to reconcile who you are with who everyone else thinks you are. His gaze flickers, just for a moment, toward the audience. But I've learned that running from it doesn't help. Neither does pretending to be someone I'm not. The only way forward is to be honest in my own way. Sunny's voice cuts in, soft but insistent. Your own way. But does your own way communicate enough? Because people are forming opinions right now, based on what they see, and what they don't see. Chris nods slowly, understanding the pivot in her question. I get that. I really do. And I've realized that I've probably underestimated how much silence can be interpreted. That's on me. A tense pause fills the room. The audience leans in. The co-hosts exchange subtle glances, sensing the crescendo building. There's a vulnerability now that wasn't present at the beginning of the interview. The carefully constructed charm, the humor, the lighthearted banter, all of it has melted away. This is raw, this is unguarded, and everyone watching can feel it. Sunny leans closer, her tone softening but sharpening simultaneously. So if silence is dangerous, how do you bridge that gap? How do you make sure your actions match the expectations of people who are watching, sometimes expecting more than what's comfortable for you? Chris exhales slowly. His fingers tap lightly against the mug in front of him. For a moment, he seems to be wrestling internally with the enormity of the question. And then, with quiet determination, he speaks. By being intentional, he says. By choosing moments where I can make a real difference rather than reacting to every headline. By standing for the values I care about in ways that matter, not performative, but real. That's my approach. There's a murmur in the audience, soft but perceptible. Some nod in agreement. Others sit frozen, caught between surprise and admiration. Even the co-hosts seem momentarily subdued, recognizing the sincerity in his words. Sunny doesn't let the moment linger too long. Intentionality is important, she acknowledges. But intention doesn't always translate into perception. People watch what you do and they interpret it, sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly. But the impact is still real. Do you think you've been careful enough? Chris meets her gaze squarely this time, the faint edge of defiance in his eyes now tempered by honesty. I haven't always been. And I own that. I think anyone in the public I would tell you the same thing. There's always more you could do to make sure your actions reflect your values. But I also know that perfection isn't the point. Progress is. Consistency is. Showing up matters more than the narrative that builds around it. The audience leans forward as the tension reaches a new peak. Every word seems to echo beyond the studio, into living rooms, phones, social media feeds. This is no longer a celebrity interview. It's a study in authenticity under pressure. Sunny leans in slightly, lowering her voice but increasing the intensity. Chris, people look up to you. They see you as a role model, whether you asked for it or not. That comes with a responsibility to communicate clearly, especially when people feel vulnerable or excluded. How do you reconcile your personal boundaries with the expectations of the public? Chris pauses, considering. His expression softens, vulnerability now fully visible, layered with resolve. I reconcile it by being myself, but by also listening. By paying attention to what people need, not just what they want. By admitting when I fall short. That's how I try to honor that responsibility without losing myself. There's a hush in the room now. You can almost hear the air shift, the collective realization that this conversation has transcended its original context. It's cinematic, intense, and emotional, a rare glimpse of truth in a medium built on performance. Sunny nods slowly. And do you think people will accept that? She asks, her tone lighter, probing but not accusing. That your honesty and your efforts are enough? Chris takes a moment, looking out at the audience, as if searching for the answer not just in the studio but in the viewers themselves. Then he smiles faintly, a little wryly, but with unmistakable sincerity. I hope so. I can't control everyone's perception. I can only control what I do, how I show up, and how I treat people around me. If that doesn't resonate with everyone, that's on them. But I know I'm trying my best, and that has to be enough for me. The room seems to exhale collectively. The tension loosens, but it doesn't disappear. It transforms into something else, respect, understanding, a recognition of the difficult balancing act between celebrity and authenticity. Sunny smiles faintly, almost imperceptibly, acknowledging the honesty in his words. Then perhaps this is the conversation people need more of, she says softly. Chris nods. Exactly. More conversations. More listening. Less assumptions. That's how we move forward. The audience begins to applaud, tentative at first, then stronger, more confident. Not just for Chris, not just for Sunny, but for the rare moment of raw, unfiltered truth played out on national television. And as the applause swells, Chris leans back in his chair, a subtle but palpable relief washing over him. The confrontation has passed, but the impact, on the studio, the audience, and the millions watching from home, is only beginning to unfold. Because this isn't the end. It's the turning point. The moment where perception meets reality, and a celebrity becomes more than an image. They become a person, grappling publicly with the weight of expectation, honesty, and accountability. And as the cameras capture every glance, every breath, every measured word, one thing is clear. This conversation will not be forgotten anytime soon. It will ripple outward in discussions, in social media debates, in opinion pieces. And Chris Pratt, he knows this is only the beginning of a much larger dialogue. The studio lights dim slightly as the segment winds down, but the energy in the room hasn't faded. It's shifted. The audience sits in a stunned quiet, murmurs blending with claps that start softly, then swell into something more sustained. They aren't just applauding an actor or a host. They're responding to the raw honesty that unfolded in real time, the kind of unguarded truth that doesn't happen often in front of millions. Chris Pratt leans back, his posture relaxing but still composed. The faint tension in his shoulders has eased, replaced by a quiet determination. He glances at Sunny Hostin, who meets his gaze with a mix of respect and acknowledgement. There's a mutual understanding now. This wasn't about winning or losing. It was about facing hard truths together. Off camera, the crew exchanges whispers, aware that they've just witnessed something extraordinary. Producers tap notes into tablets, audience members murmur into their phones, and the social media world has already started buzzing, hashtags forming even as the cameras continue rolling. Clips of Chris's measured responses, his moments of vulnerability, and Sunny's incisive questioning are being shared, dissected, and discussed at lightning speed. The co-hosts offer their closing remarks, weaving in lighter banter to ease the intensity, but the electricity remains. For those watching from home, the impact is undeniable. You can feel it in the way people lean closer to their screens, replaying sentences, pausing to consider, discussing in living rooms, offices, and online forums. The conversation has transcended a single interview. It's become a cultural touchstone, a rare instance where celebrity and accountability collide with authenticity. And the aftermath is immediate. Within hours, social media erupts. Clips go viral. People praise Chris for his honesty, calling out the courage it takes to sit with difficult questions without deflecting. Others debate his answers, dissecting every word, analyzing intentions, scrutinizing the balance between silence and accountability. Comment sections fill with heated exchanges, heartfelt testimonials, and reflective questions. Conversations that had simmered quietly now ignite in public spaces worldwide. The media seizes on it, headlines reflecting a spectrum of reactions. Chris Pratt confronts tough questions head-on. Sunny Hostin's interview pushes actor into uncharted territory, a rare moment of authenticity on daytime TV. Opinion pieces analyze his every phrase, while late-night shows reference the exchange, highlighting the tension, the courage, and the unexpected depth. Podcasts dedicate episodes to unpacking the dialogue. People debate, not just what he said, but what it means to be a public figure in a world where perception can overshadow reality. And for Chris, the impact is personal as well as public. Tweets, DMs, and fan letters pour in, many expressing gratitude for his openness, for refusing to hide behind rehearsed platitudes. Others challenge him, pressing for more transparency, more nuance, more engagement. But he doesn't recoil. He understands that the conversation is ongoing, evolving beyond the cameras, beyond the studio, into the hearts and minds of those watching. Sunny Hostin's role is equally noted. She is praised for pushing without attacking, for demanding clarity while allowing room for reflection, for creating a space where a celebrity could show humanity without theatrics. Analysts point out that her questioning wasn't just skillful, it was essential. It brought a rare intensity to daytime television, reminding viewers that curiosity and accountability can coexist with respect. For the audience in the studio, the memory lingers. They replay the tension, the pauses, the subtle shifts in Chris's demeanor, the unwavering focus of Sunny. Some leave in awe, some in contemplation, some already drafting their thoughts on social media. It's a moment that will be retold, remembered, and referenced in countless conversations long after the cameras stop rolling. In the end, the confrontation has evolved into connection. Not a simple resolution, but a meaningful exchange that reminds viewers of something rare. That celebrities are human, that accountability matters, and that even in highly scripted worlds, truth can surface when people are willing to face it honestly. As the studio empties and the last echoes of applause fade, one thing is clear. This interview has become more than entertainment. It's a reflection of society's expectations, challenges, and the possibility of dialogue that bridges gaps instead of deepening them. And it leaves a lingering question. How do we, as a public, respond when someone chooses honesty over image? Now it's your turn. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Chris handled the questions with courage? Did Sunny push too far, or just enough? And make sure to subscribe to Stage View for more explosive, dramatic stories that put you right in the heart of the moment. This is the conversation that won't end when the credits roll. It's only beginning. Because some moments aren't just watched, they're experienced. And this was one of them.